Everyone, and welcome back to the Business of Business podcast, Two Daughters and Their Dad. I'm your host, Staci J. Dempsey. And like always, I have the one and only Dad. Good morning, good afternoon to you, Dad. How are you?
Great. Hello, everybody.
And good morning and good afternoon to all of our viewers and our listeners. Thank you all so much for tuning in with us today. Unfortunately, today, Jennifer will not be able to join us. Other duties call, so we completely understand, but we certainly miss her when she can't be a part of the episode. But the episodes still go on, and here we are, thinking about and starting to talk about what are going to be the self-development goals for 2026. And what do they look like for ourselves, and then what do they look like for the people that work alongside of us in our businesses, and what's the importance of it, what's the importance of thinking about it now, and starting to plan some of that out. So Dad, why don't you kind of start us off here a little bit with just, self-development in an ever-changing world, right? Not just in whatever niche we might be in for our business, but just everything around us is changing very, very quickly, and still yet self-development can still win the day. So why don't you share with our viewers and our listeners a little bit about that?
Well, yes. I mean, probably more important than ever because of the change and the pace of change out there. But self-development has always been important component, for business owners, and no matter what business you're in, and for everybody for that matter. I mean, there are certain people that I guess can go into jobs at a younger age that maybe doesn't require that, but most things do. So self-development and becoming better has always been important. But when we look at today, I mean, it is grown in importance more than ever because we're not in a lineal world where change is just kind of coming, an inch at a time. It's coming very rapidly, exponentially. And so, in order to not only just keep pace with change, but to take advantage of the opportunities that the change is bringing, requires us to be, intentional about self-development. So, making sure that as you approach the new year, and you're establishing goals and processes for 2026, self-development, should be one of the things really at the top of your list of making sure that you're creating capacity in your schedule, for that. Now, the beautiful thing is, it's pretty easy in terms of getting content. I mean, I can remember, back several years ago, I remember when I was starting my insurance career, and we were living in one town, but the area I was working in was about, 2.5 hour, 3 hour drive. So I would leave out on Monday morning, head to that area and work till Thursday and then come home Thursday night. But I remember dropping you and your sister off at the babysitter on early Monday morning and heading towards, this territory about 3 hours. And I had my stack of cassette tapes, from different speakers, in the car. And I would just listen to those tapes over and over and over again, in those drives. And then I would play it when I'm, was driving around, whether going to appointments or making sales calls. But that was the way you had that content delivered. Now, with your cell phones and your laptops, I mean, there's just so much content out there, such as this. I mean, our podcast is content for self-development, and so that's an opportunity. So you have podcasts. I mean, you just have again just so many ways to get content delivered. The key is determine, in your particular business, what do you need to be focusing on? So, so again, it's absolutely critical.
Yeah. Well, and I think also there's different, when you kind of section things out, there's things inside your business that change, that can change pretty frequently, updates like in our business, updates on things that, either the company puts out, the, Department of Insurance puts out, what are other carriers doing that we might need to try to anticipate, how it could affect us and the people that we serve. There's, kind of that self development within, the business, but then there's just self development of just who I need to be as a person to kind of maneuver through the world and maneuver through life. And like you said, Dad, there's different ways of going about it. Um, and I think sometimes because there is so much access to it that, you know, hopefully the message today is to be really intentional about segmenting the time, because it's nice to be like, oh yeah, I get a nugget here, I get a nugget there because I'm, in the car for 20 minutes, but really saying, you know what, I need to take, for example, I gotta get my credits for my license. I have to segment time out to do that. That's not something I can, kind of just do in the car or listen to while I'm making dinner. Like I gotta really, focus on, segment time out in my schedule. And we are coming up on towards the end of the year where we say, take time away out somewhere else outside of your business to go and talk about planning and things like that. Um, do the same for when you're talking about your self-development goals and what those look like, and then also determining how do you want to receive your information. And we've talked about it before. I would love to sit here and say I love the idea of reading the book, but never usually get that far for just because of that's just how not my preferred way of getting the information. And so just determining how you want to get that information as well.
Well, that's right. I mean, and that's again one of the opportunities in today's world is you, um, yeah, I listen to books on, on my phone, because, I'm pretty busy through the day and, and I tell myself I'm going to, read a little bit at night and, it's just you're tired, so I don't read, that much, but I'm driving and I'm moving around. And so I just turn the book on and I can listen to it over and over and over again, or I can go back and say, okay, I like that chapter. I want to listen to it again, where if I'm reading a book, I don't, I'm not going to typically go back and read a chapter two or three times, but I'll listen to it over and over again.
Great
So
point.
again, there's just a way that you can get your information delivered. You have that, you have the podcast. And I think we've talked about it on the podcast, but one of the other things they have out there are book summaries, which I use a lot. So, I have an app that, has, and it's all about self-development, typically business, and on a very, various topics, and you can kind of pick, like you said, kind of where do you want to go? And there are 15, around 15-minute book summaries that they just go over the key points. So the nice thing about that is book, but it's, you know, but you are picking up um, the key points. So
Right.
that's a great resource. Um, but I think you hit it right on the head, Stacy. It's like what do I need to do in my business to become better? And so, we get so focused on, the goals, whatever the goals for your business might be. It might be sales numbers. It's certainly going to be profit numbers and, and you run hard after that. But I think what's most important, if you can think of it this way, even though those things are important, is who are you becoming in the process of all of that? Because we have a tendency to run and, and just move from one thing to another. And then we can become, stressed, or anxious about business or the things of life. And I think a lot of that is because, we have a tendency to put so much emphasis on results, that that's what produces that. But if we can somehow shift our mind to say, I want to focus on who I'm becoming in the midst of pursuing these things, then you have a tendency to view things differently. For example, you might look at a situation that would be clearly a setback or a challenge, but say, okay, how can I grow from this? How can I become better from this situation, rather than, oh no, what's this going to mean for my business? What's this going to mean for sales? What's this going to mean, for our bottom line? Then that mindset produces more, worriness, where if you think, okay, well, this is where we're at today, so let's work through it and learn from it and become better. And if you can kind of maintain that mindset, I think people, and that comes again from self-development. It comes from being a continuous learner. So, I think that it starts to frame your thinking a little bit differently too, hopefully away from, the worries and stresses of the world, which are a
Sure.
lot for sure.
Yeah. So now what about, self development for for employees, for staff, for people that are working alongside of our business? I mean, that some people are, sometimes not even introduced to really self development until they get into into a niche, into a industry and things like that. Um, and certainly we do a lot of promotion here for for our staff. But maybe talk a little bit about what you've seen the benefits are of, just kind of either showing, like leading by example, sharing books, that you have over the years, and what maybe kind of feedback you've gotten from staff.
Well, that's a great point. And I think that, in any business, you want to be asking that question. Am I investing in my people? Am I investing to make them more empowered to do their jobs? And and that in many cases is what people are looking for. Yes, they want income, they need income, they want, obviously a good work environment and all that. And that is important. But but they also want to know, hey, I'm being invested in so I can do my job better, that I can feel like I'm growing in my work, whether it's in, no matter what it is. Now, like I said, there are some businesses that, your workforce is going to potentially be more part-time or younger. And, maybe the jobs that you offer are, for a lot of people are kind of that transition job, their first or second job. So, they're never going to be a career person in some cases. But there's still always a way to invest in them, and help them become better, as employees and their positions, because it's only gonna help your business. It's only gonna help, whether it's, investing in how to, you know, build relationships with customers, or, how to, promote people being repeat customers, and how to greet, and how to have,
Use
have,
AI. What kind of tools can we use that are available to make, the position easier?
right.
How can we lighten the load in some areas using tools that we have, but giving people the confidence to try the tools and use the tools and make mistakes with the tools and things like that. Yeah.
Well, that's right. And, and then you have other positions, like many of them here in our office, if not all of them, are more, there's a lot of technical components to their job, knowledge base, systems base. So, you know, it, it does require a lot of, making sure, as the owner, entrepreneur, that, you're investing in your people, that they feel like they, you know, have the confidence to do their job well. Because when they do, your clients and customers are going to sense that. I mean, it's very rewarding when I go out or meet with a client and I can tell they have a very good relationship with their customer service person, um, because that means that they trust them. They trust in their, they're going to get the job done. They trust in their knowledge. And so I want to make sure I'm being intentional about promoting that. So there's no doubt you don't want to just let that happen, even though some of it will happen organically. You want to be intentional. And then there's just, again, and it doesn't have to be some, you know, it could be just a, 15 or 20-minute huddle, to go over a couple things. Or like you said, it could be, investing in some resource that you take, maybe over some period of time and break it down into bite-sized stuff to review with your employees. But it's just, again, it's just important that you do it for the benefit of your business, but you also do it because that's what people are looking for today. They're looking for they want to work somewhere where they feel like somebody's investing in me, to become better at what I do. Yeah. So very important.
Yeah. So, Dad, before we kind of close out this episode, what could be three action items that, somebody takes to make sure that they're intentional about, setting some self-development goals for 2026?
Yeah. I think number one is kind of, you know, determine what you feel like you need to strengthen yourself in, whether it's, in communication, whether it's in, um, you know, planning, goal setting, building processes, just kind of determine, where you feel like you're struggling, and then, try to build and start small. Don't try and just take on some robust self-development plan that's going to chew up a lot of time. Just start small. Take, 15 or 20 minutes a day to listen to something, that's empowering, that is going to help you build your business and grow your business, and do your work more effectively. So, determining what you need, and then determining, again, a time that you're going to put, and try and put that in your schedule. Now,
Right.
in my case, my goal is, I do something every morning. I listen to, and sometimes it's, again, because of the delivery of content, I can be listening to that and, getting ready for work, or, doing some things like that, um, but I would suggest you just try to sit down and just give it your concentration, for, some period of time, but just build a plan on when you're going to do it. And then if you do have a position where you're, have quite a bit of windshield time, whether it's on a commute back and forth or just kind of the course of your day, you're in and out of the car, and, you know, take advantage of that. They used to call it windshield university,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
taking advantage of that windshield time of, listening to something that is going to make you a better business owner, better parent, better person, whatever you may be pursuing. So, just again, those would be some initial things that, you could do right away. But I remember this one saying that I have never forgotten, is that we don't become successful. We attract success by who we
Hmm.
become.
Yeah.
So it's the process of becoming the business owner. The more you develop yourself, the more success Velcro gets attached to your body, that then success can attach to.
Yeah.
But like I said, if we're just chasing success, we're probably going to be, a bit stressed, bit anxious, because because the thing of it is, at least and I can look around and, and I'm very thankful, but I see a lot of plaques and trophies and things for, many years of, you know, hitting successful numbers. Um, but when I look at those things, they are like, okay, I don't even remember what I did that year,
Yeah,
right?
right.
I know
Right.
I know I got a trophy for it, but I don't remember what I did,
Sure.
and but what's more rewarding is, all right, well, who am I? How much value am I bringing to my clients and to my team? And so, as we become more successful, we're caring for other people. We're
Right.
bringing saying, okay, I'm going to be pursuing that, and then we'll let the other stuff kind of hopefully fall into place where it needs to be from a numbers
Right.
standpoint. So
Right.
so but get that Velcro on, that success Velcro.
I love it. Get your Velcro ready, guys. We're going into 2026. Let's get this going. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us on this episode, and we will see you the next time.